Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Level Set. We have an incredible moment that we're going to try and take advantage of this morning. We had a show laid out for you, but as fate would have it, Dr. Charles Alexander is at ground zero in Atlanta, Georgia, where the supposedly leader of the free world is supposed to address one of the most magnanimous groups of individuals tomorrow at Morehouse's graduation. And as Mike Jones stated, we're jazz musicians and we got to take advantage of the moment. So instead of going into the scripted show, we are going to deal with this political piece and particularly things surrounding welcoming a guest in a political setting in an environment that is as multifaceted as it is right now, as spirited as it is right now. So, having said that, I am going to defer to you two, and let's engage in this discussion with respect to the appropriateness of housing Mr. Biden and uh, the totality of the relationship as it relates to the benefit of Black folks and politics in moments like this.
Okay, Charles, why are you in Atlanta today? I know what's going on, but why are
Mhm.
you in Atlanta?
I'm actually down here because it's my 35th class reunion,
Okay,
and so that's why I came. I mean, I come to graduation every so often, but I'm here this weekend because it's my 35th class reunion, and in the midst of my planning, we find out that Morehouse has invited Joe Biden, and so what I haven't decided, and I'm gonna decide in the next couple of hours or whatever, um, is whether or not I'm actually going to go to graduation. Which, again, in and of itself, I mean, I've been in I've been in town for graduation before and not attended graduation. So my not attending in and of itself is not a political statement. And so, but I am trying to figure out if this moment requires my attendance, right? If I should be here and um, for the moment, and and my concern is not about endorsing Biden. My concern is about the moment. Is this a moment that I can really kind of afford to miss? Because you just don't know, what's going to happen, and so having the opportunity to attend and and be present and witness to whatever's going to happen. I think it's you know I'm trying to figure out if you know kind of what I'm gonna do, but um, that's why I'm in town, and we're on campus now, and it's nothing going on right now. Right now, it's a lot of class meetings going on, but we know that probably at about 6 o'clock this evening is going to be super duper super duper presence for of all of the Secret Service and all that kind of stuff is going to start beefing up as the day progresses.
let me you and all three of us are college students, as they would say. Although you and Larry matriculated at the Atlanta University complex, the epicenter of the Black University experience. I caught the bus and went to UMSL, but it all worked out for me. But and you and Larry were both legitimate scholars and intellectuals, as evidenced by your advanced degrees. What I'm curious about is, and I think I'm older than you guys, but not that much older. So the Black college experience was connected generationally when you were there, because we all came from working class. Now some of us, especially in a place like Morehouse,
Right.
were upper class Black, but most Black folks were from ordinary circumstances, and a lot of times you could be the first person in your family to go to college. And the civil rights movement was really a function of Black college kids, and then by extension, white college kids objecting to the status quo. This moment we're in right now is about college kids saying this is wrong. What I'm curious about, and I'd like Larry to weigh in on this too, is how what constitutes the Black establishment has gotten so far, so disconnected to the everyday experience and ethos of the Black community. And they're more concerned about what it means for Biden than what it means for the people that sent you into these spaces. You got any thoughts on that?
I do. I'm reading a book right now called The Fall of Empires. And one of the tenets of that, and there's another book that I mean, it's amazing how these things line up. There's another book that I'm reading also that deals with it's called Tropical Dependency, and it talks about the world's dependency on Africa and the resources of Africa. And doing so, it goes through and it lays out how each and every one of the prior empires failed. And one of the main tenets that I'm finding consistent in, not just these two books, but things that I've read in the past, is you become, the middle class, that individual that typically would forge any revolutions. When they become placated and they become satisfied and they begin to enjoy decadence, most movements stifle. So that is the safety valve group. And if you can keep that group pacified, it's fine. And you can do that all the way up to the demise of a civilization. Because before the Roman Empire, right before the collapse of the Roman Empire, they experienced um, uh, prosperity at its highest level right before it failed, because you can be inundated to a false sense of security and who you are. And I think that that's what's going on now. We and as we go back and look at, we were going to talk a little bit today about Moses Dixon. But those individuals, even though they were well off, they were committed to the freedom of everyone. But we're so disassociated with one another now, we think that, we're provincial. We don't have a national outlook, and that's been done by design. So when you have a media that tries to separate suffering people by, castigating them as criminals, individuals that don't want to do anything, and that gets into unmotivated individuals, and you do victim blaming. It's easier for those in the middle class to assume that they're special, even if they don't say it, become isolated, and and not just lulled to sleep, but they don't even understand, as middle class individuals, there's a war against us every day. So I mean, these folks, and oftentimes we have just been lulled to sleep. But I think the primary satisfaction is to make sure that Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs have been met, and you can forget about those individuals sacrificing that, in my opinion. Dr. Alexander, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Well, I mean, I think you got that, and I think if we look at it, you're just as likely to get whatever it is that you perceive to be the leadership to come out the middle class too. So you get both. So you get leadership out of the middle class, not because the middle class is innately full of leaders, but because you have people of means that actually have time to sit and contemplate, whatever there is to be contemplated. And then you also have people in the middle class who are indifferent to what's going on because they're middle class. And and in this moment, when we're looking at a Morehouse and we're looking at, how how we get to the situation, like for me, I'm trying to figure out, what's in it for us. So I know why he would accept the invitation. I'm trying to figure out why it was offered. Right. Um I buy into the, so yesterday we had rites of passage um event, so last night, we made the men of Morehouse men, they made another step in that progression. Um and so there was conversation about, about the president of the United States coming here, and Dr. Thomas spoke to the point of, Dr. Thomas and Brother Nix, who coordinated, who developed the Rites of Passage program, both spoke to, Morehouse is the place where this should happen. Um, there's a degree to which I agree, um, and that degree, for me, the degree to which that exists is I believe that whatever happens tomorrow, we're going to survive it. So I believe that. And so, so if it's going to happen, we can manage it, and we're going to be fine. But my question is like, what are we going to get for doing it? And so is this going to bolster, our endowment? Are we going to get, uh, some kind of endowed chair that, the federal government funds, or, like what at a material level, what are we going to get? That's what I'm looking at. Now, in terms of who we are, I believe we've compromised ourselves, because you can't reconcile. So yesterday we're having this event in King Chapel. King Chapel is named after Martin Luther King. And there's a big statue of Dr. King, on the pedestal out in front of the chapel. And to me, you can't reconcile, um, you know,
You can't
the
reconcile
fostering.
Dr. King with Gaza.
Yes, you can't reconcile Dr. King and, wholesale genocide. That's and so and that's what I'm saying. I mean, like I'm clear, kind of based on, our previous conversations, and the way that we've talked about the fight, that, you know, the Democratic Party is in our interest, because in general, the platform speaks to the needs of Black folks. But that's different than any particular Democrat. And so we're in this moment where this guy is coming here because he thinks this is going to get him credibility with the Black community, and he knows he needs our vote. And I'm saying that can't be cheap. So if we're gonna play this game, we got to get something for it, because otherwise we've simply, compromised who we are, and we've besmirched names, like Dr. King and Howard Thurman and Benny Mays, who wasn't a Morehouse man, but he was the president of Morehouse and a very significant person in the growth and development of the school and young men, and still has an imprint. And in fact, his presence was all over the event last night. And so that's kind of where we are in this thing. And it's like, how do you at one and the same time laud, Dr. King and Howard Thurman, speak of the relationship that was fostered between Howard Thurman and Mahatma Gandhi, and then bring this guy in who's he's he's facilitating the wholesale destruction of Gaza.
Let me pose a question for both of you to consider. We give the Black College, the HBCU, credit for something that was never its purpose or intent. And because Black revolutionaries like Dr. King and Kwame Ture, aka Stokely Carmichael, are all alumnus, and those were the two that just popped into my mind when you were talking. They were not what the Black college experience, especially the elite Black college experience, was supposed to be about. What they did was get an extraordinary education, and they followed Socrates' at least Plato's Socratic principle that the unexamined life is not worth living. And they, and literally both of them were philosophy majors, by the way. And so their critique, and by extension, those whole two generations, and even the people that came out of those schools before, then used that enlightenment to challenge the system. But they did it in connection to the overall Black experience, not to their experience, but to the overall Black experience. And to your point, Charles, what did we get? Now, I don't know what the bag was for Black HBCUs that Biden had, but even Trump had a bag for the HBCUs because of the sister that was, I don't know what, Melissa, whatever her name is. So at some point, even gangsters will tell you it ain't about the money. Okay, there are just things you can't buy. Okay, there are transactions we do, and there are quid pro quos, but some things ain't available. And so the reality is, in these moments of moral clarity, where do you decide to be? So, the reality is Morehouse was free to say, because other universities have withdrawn invitations that they speak. Sorry, man, but all things considered, we're gonna have to be with them. Okay, can't be with you. I gotta choose, and if I gotta choose, I gotta dance with who brought me, and you didn't bring me, and we can still do business. But today, the store ain't open, And it seems to me that, and I think there's an assumption on parts of a lot of people in America that we ought to be grateful and owe them if they supported our struggle. And I would argue they supported our struggle because we was the canary in the coal mine. Okay, that as James Baldwin told Angela Davis, if they take you in the evening, they gonna come for us in the morning. So that's clear. So the reality is, you don't owe people for helping you when it was in their interest to help you. That ain't no favor. Okay.
That's the interest convergence, right? And
Right.
that's the part of this that we get wrong all the time, Mike. And so, like, even like as you were saying, you're talking about the bag, and whether it was Trump or even, you know, they talking about some record amount of money that Biden has given to Black colleges. He give colleges money. So he ain't gave no money that makes it that results in equity. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
he gave the HBCUs money. He gave everybody money. So he hasn't differentially serviced HBCUs, right? Trump didn't differentially service HBCUs.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
what
Well,
we get this stuff wrong.
I think they just started their meeting.
Biden gave all of this, he gave whatever amount of money he gave to HBCUs, but his spending on police, not the military, but the paramilitary, his spending on police is easily 10 times greater than what he's given to, you know, HBCUs or to Black folks otherwise, right? And so these things that we say, they're typically uninformed because we don't read, because all we do is listen to sound bites. This, you know, I'm a benefit of the loan forgiveness piece. But let's be clear, what he's given isn't even 1% of the loan debt. It's not even 1%.
And Charles, to that point, college shouldn't have cost that much, so you wouldn't have had to have the loan to be forgiven.
Absolutely.
Because it didn't cost that much when I went to school. Okay.
Right.
Absolutely. And so I was going to get to that. And so when we're talking about that, because that is a major point. So when we're talking about what this thing all means, what this means for college campuses, what this means for Morehouse in particular. When I was here, Morehouse was already too expensive, right?
Right.
And when I was here, it wasn't $40,000 a year or whatever it is, you know, but it was already too expensive.
I paid. I worked my way through Morehouse. Morehouse was $5,000 a year. I could manage that, and I went
It
and
was a little more than 5, but
no. That's because you stayed on campus. I never, that's
you
how
just for tuition.
tuition, tuition was $5,000
Mhm.
a
Right.
year for full-time tuition, and AT&T paid for 3 classes a semester. And I put together, monthly my room and board on my own, but it's way too expensive. But it's way too expensive, and like Malcolm said, you stick a knife in my back 12 inches and pull it out 6. I didn't have to say thanks. You haven't done me a favor, because they're all in cahoots. When the student loans were essentially weaponized, that's when tuition has just gotten outlandish. That's the whole reason. So yeah, he forgave my loan, but I never should have had to have my loan.
You shouldn't have to pay
Grad-
that.
Graduate school. I paid undergrad flat, but for graduate school, I did take some loans. But
Mhm.
but this notion that Biden has all of a sudden made a genocidal decision in his administration, to me, is I think it's misplaced. He's been a killer. He's been a killer since he was a senator. And
Yes.
I mean, if you're gonna have conversations with this cat, you're gonna have conversations with him. So I have to juxtapose that versus Mike. When we talked about Shirley Chisholm running for president, we talked about the dilemma you put serious black politicians in when they can't go and negotiate with folks that are going to win, by having to have be engaged in identity politics as opposed to being able to go and make a deal.
And
And
doing something that you have to do it because it makes us feel good. It don't get
that's
us
all it
nothing.
is. That's
It
all it
just makes us feel
is. That's
good.
it. That's it. It's ceremonial. It's not going to, so being in so that being the situation, knowing, and, knowing, because King would have met with anyone. Now we're not going to endorse this guy, but we've got to do, I had a conversation with someone this week about setting egos aside on the benefit of those that you're representing. I mean, that's the nature of this game that we're in. And we have to go. I mean, if I can get first time housing benefits for individuals that are that are facing
Underhouse.
that are underhoused, because we're in a crisis right now where you have three entities attempting to buy up all of the housing stock in the United States to make the vast majority of occupants in the United States renters. And you have just unprecedented evictions going on throughout the country. That's the deal we need to talk about. We've got to talk about that, because that's not going to, it's impacting my people. And when you are housed insecure, nothing, you talk about fight or flight.
You can't do
Right.
nothing else.
And we got an issue. We've
Uh,
got to get to these hard issues. And at the same time, we've got to make sure that we are not identifying and recognizing that same pattern that we are rightfully protesting against in Palestine, that's happening right here in the United States under his watch to us. Because you can kill a person a whole lot of ways. There's a whole lot of violence being extracted against the Black community day in and day out by the
Killing
government.
us softly. Killing
Larry,
us softly.
I want to make a clarification to your comment at the beginning. And you don't set your ego aside. What you're really talking about, and we confuse this all the time. You're talking about having enough ego to set your vanity aside, because it's your vanity that don't let you do the right thing. Your ego says your ego as a ball player, even as a star, allows you not to take the last shot when somebody got a better. Because your ego says, I came here to win the game. Your vanity says, I came here to be the star. And people with vanity will lose a game if it means they can't be the star. Somebody with ego says, as a matter of fact, I've always said, I got enough ego that my vanity will never be a problem for me. And we need to make that distinction. Charles, did I get that right about ego? You're a psychologist.
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Maybe your ego is smaller than mine. My ego will kill everything in the room.
Well,
and vanity will sit back and talk about it on Monday.
wait. Well, I put it like this, but here's the point, that Ain't that what Anthony Edwards said in the last year? He said, "I'm killing everything in front of me." I mean, I don't care. But that's what you come here for, okay? You didn't come here for the praise of the crowd or anything else. I don't care where I play games up. It don't matter to me, okay?
No, I don't have any. I don't have any away games anyway.
Right. Well, matter of fact, I took the opposite tack there. I think if you're black, you're always playing on the road, and if you're gonna
You
be a
on the
champion,
road.
if you're gonna be a champion, you got to be able to win on the road.
Well, I mean, on the
You gotta
road,
better win on the road, and
it's
what we know
on the road,
is that if we're gonna win, it's because defense travel.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
On the road, it's home team.
And that's how we have to approach this thing. And but all of this stuff matters because we plan on the road. Defense travels, shot selection, and rebounding. Right. So we got to get all of those things right to be in the game first and foremost, and then to win. But
We
Mike,
are.
you was talking about
Let me just mention we are joined by Attorney Gerald T. Christmas. Just joined us. Dr. Christmas, we are having a conversation with respect to Joe Biden speaking as the commencement speaker tomorrow at Morehouse College. Dr. Alexander is in Atlanta right now at his 35th class reunion.
on campus, Gerald.
On campus. He's at ground zero, and we were just having a conversation. Dr. Alexander and Mike Jones say they play on the road, but I'm sort of like a temptation. Everywhere I lay my hat is my home. So I'm going to feel at home in your gym. And I came to do what I came to do. And your crowd will be my crowd at the end of the day. But yeah, go ahead, guy.
So I was gonna say is, and what when Mike was on, when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about college, period. In the latter '60s and early '70s, and then Mike just made an allusion to what people think the Black college is, and what we also know about the Black college's role in the what is referred to the modern civil rights struggle. But like the fact still remains that there was a Black studies movement on Black college campuses, because what the colleges were, I can't in full speak to what the purpose of them were, besides besides educating the newly free, the newly emancipated. But one of the reasons that they were founded, and what became a principal piece, and what became a piece of leverage as it progressed, was literally to create a docile workforce. That was the purpose. And so, and then if you pair that purpose with the rising costs, you then get a class of folks who are literally here to go along, to get along. Right now, fortunately,
let's go deep in that. But aren't families doing the same thing? Aren't
Yeah.
we raising our children? And I'm saying this because I've been revisiting our Morehouse brother, Dr. Amos Wilson, and he has he's done extensive studies on how we raise our families for the purpose that society uh, celebrates, which is to maintain the status quo. No one is raising families, student bodies, or anything to right size the system equitably.
well, yeah, I mean so yes, but so to be in the system, and to to acquiesce So college is a middle class goal. So when you do that, you whatever your intentions, you've bought in at that level. Whatever your intentions are, you've bought in at that level, right? And so which was part of why there ends up being a fight, even at the Black college, about things like faculty representation and um, and content, Black studies and Black arts. That's why, because the thing is predicated on a class system. It's not predicated on our, on the, it was not predicated on the full development of Black and brown people. That's not what it's for. But that's not what the system is for. And so that's the other piece of this, is that this system exists for itself. And whatever this system allows, it allows because it betters the system. And that's where we get back again to this thing about interest convergence, is that we get confused by whatever occurs, based on who's sitting in that chair. Because we tell ourselves that, this guy has done something for us, but he hasn't done something for us. He's done something for the system. It benefits the system. And in so doing, we get some relative gain. Right. But that gain isn't a gain relative to the system. That gain is just relative to us. We get something relative to wherever we were before the system decided to adjust. And so, so when we look at Biden and whatever it is that we think he's done, what was the wealth? What people aren't calculating? What was the wealth transfer of this PPP, the PPP loan forgiveness in a situation that was disproportionately white to start with? He forgave all those loans. Tom Brady got a PPP loan. So what is the net benefit to me that, who didn't get a loan, by the way? I couldn't get one.
Should have hollered at me. I got two of them bad boys. You should have hollered at me.
And again, so what's the net benefit to you? If Tom Brady gets to forgive his loan, you ain't made ain't no relative, it's
no gain. There's no relative gain.
Right. And so the water is the same, it's the same deep, same depth, and so we don't get anything out of this stuff. And again, part of the reason why we tend not to get anything is because we continue to misread history, and we continue to misread intentions, and we find friends where friends don't exist. We do that.
Say
and
that.
So like this guy
T-shirt.
here, this guy. So before he ran, when he was running, and I was telling people to run for your lives, folks was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Look at the busing issue." Well, he didn't say busing was bad. He said he didn't think that the federal government should be involved. I was like, "Negro, that's states' rights." That's what he is, a dang on Dixiecrat. That's who he is. But we don't understand that, right? We don't read between the lines. And so, folks don't like Trump because he said grab him in the pussy. But there's a whole litany of narratives about Joe Biden taking up women's space, touching them, all of that kind of stuff. We just don't talk about it no more. That stuff was all over when he was the vice president. Joe Biden's a little touchy-feely. Yeah. He too is one of those same people. But we forgetting, we get desperate, and we literally go into this thing trying to pick the lesser evils where I don't know that that thing exists. In as much as we should be fighting for what's in our interest. And if those interests require a figurehead, so be it. But we're not voting for the figurehead, we're voting for our interests.
That's correct. Gerald, Christmas, from what you've heard, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this entire piece with respect to Biden, Morehouse, and the Black college experience. You just had a graduate from a Black college. Congratulations. Yeah, we would love to hear your thoughts at this point.
I agree with what Dr. Alexander is saying. You know, it's a middle class effect when you decide to go to college. You are incorporated into the system, and we're not challenging children to be opposed to the system or to develop their own system. I think that's what the real issue is. But because we come into this country as an oppressed people, it seems like that's the side effect of that oppression, is to always want to be a part of the system. And I think especially at the HBCUs, he is absolutely right. These children are not being trained to be resistant or to buck the system, because the system actually is correct. It's not going to work for us. It's just like how we talk about policing and what we need to do to improve policing. Policing is never going to work for us. You know, this current system of policing is never going to work for us. This current system of education is not going to work for us. And we have to develop some type of pattern to go against the system. But we have so many people now that are infused in this system that are gatekeepers. I don't know really how that's going to happen. And I remember I was down in Morehouse when Obama spoke for the commencement ceremony, because my nephew was graduating from Morehouse. And I don't know, are the students protesting Biden speaking at the?
There are some, yes. There are some. And there was at least one student that had something to say at the rites of passage ceremony yesterday. But there's clearly a movement up front to suppress that voice.
Right.
Right.
And you
so
would expect that. I mean, you shouldn't really be surprised. You would expect at Morehouse, because I think that, Morehouse has primarily, at least for the last couple of decades, been training kids to go into corporate America and to be a part of the system, not to oppose the system in any way. So I would think that they would, welcome a Biden coming to speak, or anybody else of that caliber, just to be able to say that you had a president that came, and spoke on your case. This would be the second Democratic president that I know of to come and speak on the campus. And I can't think of, have we had any other HBCU campuses where a president has come and spoke for commencement?
Howard, I'm sure.
I just haven't heard of it in recent time at any place else but Morehouse.
And so, I mean, and to have done it, I mean, so it, like,
and I really think this is probably a campaign ploy for Biden.
Well, that's what it is for him. But
yeah, because
that's
it's just like when
what
Trump came down to Chick-fil-A on the campus a few weeks ago. And it was all the conversation about that, because you had the Spelman students and other individuals, on camera saying that they support Trump, and he was down there passing out. I forgot what he was passing out. I think he probably wanted to come down there and give out chicken, and somebody in the staff probably said, "Now that's going to be too much. You can't go down there and give out chicken too." But it's just a campaign ploy, but they fall
Unless
right
you
into
got
it.
some watermelon with it. unless you got some.
But I forgot what he was giving out at the Chick-fil-A, but I know he probably wanted to give out chicken at first, and they probably stopped it.
Let me make an observation because I got the screen on gallery, so I'm looking at the four of us, and I'm thinking about what both Charles and Gerald have said about the university experience, the current university experience. All three of you brothers have advanced degrees. I got a bachelor's degree. And I'm only saying that because advanced degrees are about vocation. They have an academic foundation, but they're vocational degrees. An undergraduate degree used to fundamentally be about education, and intellectual development. So if you really think about it, everything, because the four of us are old enough to have had that college experience, that other than your professional intellectual development, your core intellectual views were shaped as undergraduate. Because fundamentally, we were all products of what Huxley called in that essay a liberal education. And the object of that was, and since that's when the university education was designed to produce white leadership, not white vocational employees, but white leadership. So you were exposed to a whole range of ideas, existential kind of stuff that went back 2,000 years. So Plato to Machiavelli to Marx to whatever, because the university education thought that you needed to know all of this to decide and navigate whatever the world was going to be. I would say starting sometime after you all's undergraduate education, that started to be diminished to now it doesn't exist at all. And that, to Gerald's point, the object of an undergraduate education, particularly because it costs so much, is not your intellectual development, but it's vocational training, particularly for a corporate experience, so that you'll fit in the culture. It was not designed to produce independent thinkers who were capable of observing the world, opining on it, critiquing it, and then coming up with an opinion about where they think they ought to be in that universe. So I would say the four of us are not outliers relative to our college experience, but really closer to the norm. And the likelihood that a university, black or white, anywhere, will produce critical independent thinkers on some scale is slim and none. And that goes to Larry's point about, you see the decline of a civilization when it can no longer produce intellectual leadership. You don't know what the politics of the intellectual leadership is going to be, but in order to sustain the civilization, you can't do it with rote learning and vocational training. And that's literally where America is now.
Yeah, America's been teaching for the test a long time now.
Right.
That's all they're doing. They're teaching for the standardized test. Then they're teaching for the for the onboarding process, and and the training program, and to maintain the
And
status.
then charging you $50,000 a year to do it.
You're lucky. Some of them are 75,000. The only place we're finding, the only place we are finding free thinkers, now, in the arts departments. I mean, that's
Which is shrinking.
which arts, and you're seeing, Yeah, just like you're seeing art eliminated in high school and middle school and elementary school, you see these departments not only shrinking, but shrinking and becoming highly more selective to get in. You know, you have to have extreme demonstrated interest in order to be considered, let alone be admitted into one of these art schools. I don't care what university it is. So, yeah, we've got
But how do we go about turning that around? What's the process or what's the procedure for moving us in a different direction?
we gotta,
Gerald, and I can't think of the sister's name, but Charles remembers everything. She's activist, intellectual writer, uh, and her quote is, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tool." Huh?
Correct.
Audrey
I know
Lorde.
you. Mhm.
Right.
Audrey Lorde.
Right.
And that's our fundamental problem. We're
Problem.
trying to make the system do something it was not built to do. As Du Bois said, a system that is not that can't fail you, that wasn't designed for you. And I think the one thing that you will never hear, a Black child will never hear anymore, is something I would argue. I know I heard as growing up, and I'm gonna say you guys did too, given your ages. Grown Black folks telling you, now you know this ain't designed for you. You're gonna have to figure out how to get to where you want to go, in spite of white America, not because of. I think the biggest damage we have done to Iowa, and it's self-inflicted, and them the worst kind. And that's the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion shit. That's like slaves talking about, I want a couple of off days, and how come we ain't telling our story? How come we ain't included in the story of the plantation? And that's
Right, right,
nuts. I mean,
right.
that's fun. That's a form of intellectual suicide. If you think about it, I mean, we go visit the plantation. Somebody said, "Well, I just want to see where it happened." I don't. Okay, I know what happened. I don't have no desire. Uh, uh, Somebody asked me, because I read the book 100 years ago in college, did I go see 12 Years a Slave? I said, no. Why would I pay $10 to be mad? I mean, shit, I could keep the $10 and just be mad, because that's all that movie is gonna do.
it's trauma porn.
Wait, and I don't. Wait a minute. And for me, doing battle with America is like the NBA finals or the Super Bowl. I don't need no motivation. This is what I came for, man. A coach don't need to give me no speech. Y'all don't need to tell me that I came here for this. And what you will hear coaches say, if I got to tell them something for this moment, we done lost before we started. Okay, this is the moment you play for.
Well, what
It's
about
like DeMarco Farr. It's like DeMarco Farr running off the field in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Dick Vermeil is like, you need a break. We're trying to win the game, and you need a break. That's what we got.
Well, what about, Mike, the people who didn't read the book like you? Isn't the movie not beneficial for them to get them motivated that didn't know? Because we do have a lot of young people now who probably saw that
Now,
movie.
wait a minute. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be part of our curriculum,
You just said you don't need to
but
see it.
yeah, but we shouldn't be bragging about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. We have tendency to take our oppression and wear it as this is somehow makes us worthy of being included in America. Matter of fact, what we ought to be telling white folks in America, I wouldn't bring that shit up if I was you. Okay, when we had a meeting, don't talk to Gerald about that. Okay,
Mhm.
because your stuff is going down here. Because all he gonna be is mad
Mhm.
if you bring this up. He don't understand. He don't want to understand, and that's the way he was raised. Now, if he'll do business with you, but he ain't gonna never be reconciled to that. And the reason he'll do business with you is because ain't nothing he can do about that. But if I was you, I wouldn't talk about it. And that's what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And so if you reading that not as a lesson about how screwed up America was and how fragile our existence has always been, because that's what that story is about. That born a free black man, in theory, he was one turn away from making the wrong turn on a corner to slavery. Okay,
Exactly.
so that literally it ain't no difference between his existence as quote a free black man and a black man who was enslaved. Now that's
Mhm.
the takeaway from that. So even if you're doing better, you're free. You don't own stuff because it can be taken away from you literally just like that. Now, if that's not why you want people to read the book, then don't give them the book because you're doing the book and the story a disservice if that ain't the point of having a black child or a black adult read it.
Oftentimes,
Mike Jones, that's like
oftentimes in Hollywood, the movie is just the entry point because historically they're never going to tell it that disfavors
Right.
their heroism. So that's the issue. I mean I
Well,
Well,
I
what
tell you the
about
man.
this? Now, I enjoy Django much better than 12 Years a
I,
Slave.
wait a minute.
I left
Django,
Django feeling
Ja-
very good.
Django uplifted me. Okay.
It uplifted me too. That's what I was gonna ask you. I think we need more Django's because when I left, I still will watch Django
I
over and
will too.
over.
I
Because I always feel good at the end of Django.
I do too. Okay.
Dr.
My
Alexander,
my favorite movie about the black slave experience is Django.
In Django. I
And
get it. I
wait a
get
minute.
it.
And it may be fictional, but it's real for me. Okay. If it didn't happen, I wish it happened like that. Okay.
And if it
And
didn't happen, at least we are sending the messages. This is how it can happen.
wait a minute. This is what I wanted to do. I
Right.
wasn't able to do it, but this is what I wanted to do.
Right.
we've had there are plenty of insurrections that we've got to cover in the future that were more than likely a combination of some of those things that went in there. But Dr. Alexander, you were going to add something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I forgot what I was gonna say, but it was
You ain't
um
that old yet.
it,
He's
no, no,
distracted. Hey
it
man,
was it was on
he's in
Mike's
Atlanta.
point.
His mind's going 1,000 different ways.
It was to Mike Jones' point about, if you're gonna tell that story in terms of 12 years a slave, just talk about, you got to tell the whole piece. And it wasn't that, it certainly it ends up being about them 12 years, but the issue is that his life was fragile before that. And the problem, the overall problem with those films as a genre is that we start to believe that that was then and this is now. Our stuff is
Correct.
always fragile.
Still just
And
as look at the
it's
army.
still
The guy that was
Air
just
Force.
killed, was that in Florida?
Yeah,
that was in Florida.
wrong
You
house.
know, so here he is serving in the Air Force. Now there's a call to the apartment complex for a disturbance, but they don't even know which apartment. And he is rightfully with his weapon, not pointed, opening the door. Because when he first looks out the peephole, he cannot see anyone. So he gets it, but he knows there's a knock at the door. and he gets his weapon. That's how he's trained in this U.S. military. And he opens the door and he's immediately shot 6 times and killed. And they want to justify that. And it's no way. And we don't even have, we are so locked into the system that we're not even opposing it. You know, there's not.
Where's Colin Kaepernick when you need him?
Right.
Where's Colin
There
Kaepernick?
is even though, this man is just flat out murdered in his apartment, minding his own business. If that's not more fragile than anything, I don't know what is, because that could happen to any one of us right
Correct.
now.
Correct. And so it's like people saying, well, you shouldn't wear a hoodie. Well, why shouldn't you wear a hoodie? Because Trayvon got killed. No, Trayvon didn't get killed because he had on a hoodie. He got killed because he was black. And so that these things, they continue to happen. And, you know, back to our piece, these things, you know, we act like these things haven't happened under this guy's watch. He the same as everything else. This is what the leader of the free world does, regardless of who the leader of the free world is. And that, and
Oh, you talking about Biden?
I'm talking about Biden right now, but it's the same.
Hey, but you know, Biden is really Dr. Alexander, the thing that really burns me up about Biden and Clinton are the architect of all of this. Because when you go back and you look at this crime bill, because I was coming out of law school at the time.
Biden's hands all over it.
All over it, all of this max punishment, enhanced punishment, Biden was all over it and on top of it, and we are still suffering from that today. You know, we'll be suffering from that. Those of us that work in the criminal justice field, you know, trying to work within this system because of these laws and the way they keep enhancing the laws now as a result of what Biden and Clinton did, we'll never get from out under this. The only way we can get up from under this right now is all of it. Absolutely all of it would have to be reversed. Every single one of it. Every single piece of legislation.
We're so crazy. We are so crazy.
That's really why they should be on fire about Biden speaking at Morehouse, because he's responsible for more black people being in prison now than any other president in my lifetime.
We are so crazy that we believe that a white man from Arkansas and a white man from Delaware will take care of us.
Right.
So we're gonna get 2 white men from slave states.
Right.
And they're gonna take care of us. We believe that.
Wait, here is my real issue. It's how black leadership has sold out black people, because you're trying to promote Biden as somehow this paragon of virtue. The rationale for voting for Biden is not that Biden is great, that the other white boy is even worse. So I'm not gonna sell you like things got better. You got a choice between bad and worse. So the story for Biden, if you're talking to black voters, is you don't want Trump and the basket of deplorables, as Hillary Clinton accurately described them. You don't want them. You know, it's almost the fiction that you would hear that probably wasn't true. Well, being a slave is terrible in Virginia, and it's even worse in Mississippi and Alabama, which might have been true, by the way. But the point is, you still enslaved where you were. So there's no need to make Biden something he's not to black people. There is a empirical rationale that will say why you ought to, if these are your 2 binary choices, if this is a binary choice, you really ain't got one, because Biden is your only real option. And if you think Trump is an option, then you need to quit using them drugs you using, okay? that can't work. And you can't dislike Biden so much that you think Trump is an option.
And that's and the problem again, is that people end up voting, person. They don't vote agenda. And that's we just can't afford to be that, but that's kind of what we do. And so we end up voting the agenda en masse, not because it's the agenda, but because we're fearful of the other side. So we not even necessarily voting our interests. We voting because we scared of the other side, as opposed to this platform. Whatever it is that we're gonna get it from this platform. Most black folks don't even know. We don't even know the Democratic platform. That's why we keep saying we was like, they take us for granted. No, you vote that because that platform is in your interest, right? And so, but the same people who say that they take us for granted are the same people who don't vote in local elections. They only vote for the presidents because they don't understand politics otherwise. They don't understand the management of resources. They don't understand any of that. And so that continues to be a piece that that we have to teach. And so again, back to this guy being here on campus is there is I don't know what the win is for us other than more spotlight. And I don't know what that more spotlight does for us. We already got a waiting list, so we're gonna have a longer waiting list. And so, so if it's
They
not,
probably think it's gonna generate more revenue,
well, that's what I mean, but
more donors.
No, I mean, I think that might have a chilling effect on donors,
You think so?
not just donors. Well, I mean, if you're looking for money from from the Israeli sector, it might. But at this point, do we really want to be in bed with them at all? I mean, that's
it's not going to result in no money that folks really want. Where the money, so at a point, it can result in money, and then people got to deal with, do you want blood money? And then somebody's going to say it's money. And I mean, the question is, it's just going to be a question. It's just going to be a crazy discussion going forward. I don't know what the upside of it is. I don't know what we get for it. I don't know whatever, because at the end of the day, we're back to where we were, and you can't reconcile King and Thurman with this guy. That doesn't, you can't do it.
I mean,
And if it rains tomorrow, we're gonna be in King Chapel. So you're gonna have that guy speaking in King Chapel. Don't even make sense.
Why you gonna go to King Chapel when it rained on Obama? We stayed outside.
I gotta go back.
I just tell you that's what the usual plan is. Now, whether or not they do it or not,
Okay.
that's on them. But
Because it definitely rained the day Obama spoke.
it's just that's just crazy. You can't it can't be reconciled. That's.
But Trump, let me ask you this question. Neither of these candidates are for us. Neither Trump nor Biden. If we go along with Biden by saying that Trump is the deplorable, then all we do is maintain the system. And we already know that maintaining the system is not going to get us anywhere. So what option so what's if you had to give us an option, what would that option be then, Mike?
We have to vote our interests.
You need America.
Neither is our interest, though, is what I'm saying.
No. Again, those guys are not our interests, period.
Right.
Our interest is the agenda. We have to
Neither
vote.
agenda is
No.
neither has an agenda that's our interest.
That's not true. Healthcare matters to Democrats. It don't matter. That's a Democratic platform issue. It is not a Republican issue. Education is not a Republican issue.
Charles
Neither is the
Kodak won't pay.
environment. Neither is the environment. Neither is housing. So
And here's the problem with them, with the Democratic establishment. The Democratic establishment is still the mistress of neo-capitalism. The Republicans are the wife of neo-capitalism. So you got neo-capitalism who got a wife and a woman. Okay.
Ranch. It's coming down the hall.
Yeah, right. And so Democrats will be for health care, but they won't be for single payer. Because there ain't no real money in single payer. So what Obama did with Obamacare, yeah, he expanded it, but he also maintained the commercial health insurance market to do it. So what Democrats are willing to do is address some of the most egregious functions of the system, as long as it don't undermine the core of what the system is trying to do. What Republicans say, they don't give a shit. Okay, let them eat cake. Okay, and that's what you. So we don't need to be seduced by Democrats like somehow they are morally superior. No, they both go with the same man. Just one married to him, one goes with him, and they ain't gonna never marry us. Okay, that's how that. Now you may visit her in between his visits, but she ain't gonna never be yours in that context. So I don't know how much people understand about politics, but everybody just understood what I said about that. And that's the frame, of reference for our relationship with the Democratic Party. And that's the Democratic Party, Republican Party relationship with neoliberal capitalism in America.
And
that
so
keeps us locked in the
you gotta
system.
get people to bring this thing to more proximal spaces and times. And so the fight can't be, I mean, we don't want a Republican figurehead, whoever that is. Right now it happens to be Trump, but we don't never want it to be that. And so, because again, the platform in and of itself is not, there's nothing in that platform for us. And so you get, that's the confusion with Black, so the difference between Black Republicans and typical white Republicans is because Black Republicans actually tend to have money. White Republicans are dirt poor. They just white supremacists. And so they will vote against their interests because white is they'll vote against their fiscal interests because their social interests are met by the Republican Party. Black folks, I'm not even sure Black folks know why we pay taxes. I'm not sure the Black folks understand the relationship between taxes and public services.
Right.
I have no reason, and I'm sure, Mike, you have a very good idea about this thing. We have no idea that that's how this thing works. And I'm not talking about being overtaxed. I'm just talking about you can't get if you don't give, literally. And so we need streets and sanitation. Okay, well, streets and sanitation is paid for with your taxes. We need clean water. That's your taxes. All that stuff is your taxes. And so if you vote Republican and Republicans say we're going to cut taxes and we're going to cut social services, where does that leave us? We need all of that because we don't have the income otherwise en masse to make sure that we have sanitary living conditions, which is why we're disproportionately sick. So we don't understand all of this stuff. And we get caught up in Biden and Trump, they the same racists. They do the same things. The issue is if you have a Democratic administration and you work hard in Democratic politics, and I'm not even talking about party politics necessarily, I'm talking about you work hard at the ground level for those things that are in your interest, it works. That's the only way it works.
Charles, I would say it like this. Democrats are trying to keep the hustle going. Okay. So they're going, it's like at the carnival, every game is rigged, but the way they keep the game going is they also let you win sometimes. Okay. So there are people walking around with prizes and stuff like that.
That encapsulates the entire conversation, the safety valve that we've talked about, the entire class, the whole thing.
Right.
Vice presidents and Supreme Court seats.
If Republicans were gangsters, they would never pay off on the numbers. Okay. and real gangsters, they paid on the numbers. Every time you hit, you got your money. Because their object was to keep the game going and you keep playing. Because they got paid every time you play. And Republicans are kind of stupid and greedy. And so they just want, matter of fact, they got that nobility. Matter of fact, they are still locked in Burke's notion of how society is structured. You got the nobility, and the only reason you need peasants is to support the nobles. But it's the nobles are the only thing that matter. And in that way, and that's why nobility was a feudal system. Capitalism is more democratic, small d, and I don't mean moral. I mean just more democratic, and it requires you to keep a lot of players in place. So you don't have slavery under capitalism per se, because capitalism needs to exploit labor, and it can only do that if labor is free to move. Slavery requires a feudal, it's basically designed to support a feudal caste system that is constant. And so it ain't that one is morally superior to the other. They just do different things to make money. Now, our problem is we don't understand these deeper issues, and we believe the same. We're as dumb as white America now, okay? Because we actually believe that this shit is real, okay? And that it's going, and there was a time we understood that whatever it is, it ain't for us. So, you guys have heard me say this. My father told me, gave me some advice when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I ain't said it in a while. He said, Michael, if you're going to gamble, you have to learn how to cheat. The first thing you have to do is learn how to cheat. And it's not so you can cheat people, so you know when people are cheating you. Because in every game, somebody's cheating. There are no straight games. That's the shit they teach you in Sunday school that makes you a trick, okay? That once you develop a street mentality, what you would say, if somebody say, are they cheating? You say, not no way I know about. But I ain't gonna never tell you they ain't cheating. And the winners always cheat. Because that's the only way you can guarantee you gonna win. Gamblers don't depend on luck. That's their job. They work. And just like when you go to work, you need to know you're gonna get paid. When they go to work, they gotta know they gonna get paid. Now, if that's your mentality, I can put you any place and you'll figure out how to be all right. But if you believe
you ain't cheating, you ain't winning.
Huh?
If you ain't cheating, you ain't winning.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't winning. That's it. Period. Now you can put that in the bank. And the other advice, I heard my mother say, it wasn't advice to me, but she said, when somebody said you got to be fair, She said, I'd hit Tom Thumb in the head with a sledgehammer and he could be asleep. Now you put them two things together and you got a chance.
Say that one more time, Mike.
My mother said she would hit Tom Thumb in the head with a sledgehammer and he could be asleep. Okay. That's how you win. Okay.
Right.
Mhm. Well, listen, gentlemen, this has been an incredible show. And thank you for your
Just
participation.
lastly, let me ask this just real quick, Larry. I know this is taking us on a whole nother subject, but you know, everybody says now that we have so much betting in sports, we have way more cheating going on. Do you think that's the case?
You will.
Absolutely. I mean, Michael Porter Jr.'s brother just got thrown out the NBA ban
Right.
for cheating on prop bet that would have earned the benefactor $1.1 million. It was an $80,000 bet that it was a parlay that on three different bets he would not meet a minimum threshold, so he threw it. The casino found out and notified the NBA. He's been banned for life. And that they just so happened to catch them because they were that stupid. It was an $80,000 bet that would have paid out 1.1 million. So it's so now the NBA is trying to come up with a rule that says two-way players can't be bet upon on parlay bets. But that's totally out of control now.
Wait a minute. And here's the other street rule. My father used to say, a good hustler never takes it all. Okay. And my brother's codicil to my father's advice, he said the reason you don't take it all because they'll know it's missing.
Right.
Okay. You're stealing something every day. You can't never take enough one time not to have to come back tomorrow. Okay. What you want to do is when they look at it, you want them to say, I thought I had a little more than this, but I guess I didn't, and it ain't worth looking for. And this will be my last story for the day, but I want you all to stay with this. A guy owned a warehouse, and he was interested in expanding, and he called his banker and his insurance broker to go through the warehouse to see what he had to do. Could he get the money? And so as they were going through the warehouse, the bank and insurance broker said, hey, you don't seem to have a security system. He said, well, I don't. He said, how do you handle pilferage? He said, I got smart employees. And they said, well, what does that have to do with pilferage? He said, they steal less than a security system costs. So we cool, right?
Right. Because you're gonna pay anyway.
I'm gonna pay anyway.
No, nobody's gonna get 100.
They got a number, I got a number. We live with the number. I don't care about us stealing. I care about the number.
But I think so. There's, to answer your question, Joe, I think it's going to be more gambling because of advertisement. Period.
Right.
And so it's being marketed. But the whole thing is, I think I've always thought, as long as I've been watching sports, there's always, it's fixed. I don't even understand the preoccupation with the question. We live in a country that assassinates people.
Right.
The CIA and the FBI, the FBI infiltrates organizations. The CIA overthrows governments. They can't fucking cheat. They can't fix a basketball game. What are we doing? This thought that this is somehow magical.
But we don't think that they still doing it. See, we think that in the past, like, in the past, we've overthrown governments. In the past, we've assassinated people in our own country. It's been a while since we've had an assassination here. So people don't think that that's still going
my
on.
problem is that that's foolish, right? And so this the United States right now is fighting proxy wars.
All
Right.
over.
All
And,
across the
and,
world.
and setting up governments in Haiti and all
The
over.
United States has convinced Kenya that it needs to go shoot black people in Haiti. This
Now, you know
I-
what, Charles, they didn't convince them. They just came up with enough money to say, well, okay, this is his.
yes,
Okay?
yes,
That's what it was.
yeah, they made them an offer they couldn't refuse,
They
right?
made them offer they couldn't
And-
refuse, right?
And so I don't understand. It's we literally suspend reasoning for sports, and that's
Wait a
what
minute.
it's for.
And I'm gonna give you two basketball games that I will leave here believing knowing was fixed because it couldn't have happened no other way.
UNLV Duke.
That's it. Number one, UNLV Duke couldn't have happened no other way. And Portland losing to the Lakers in game 7, when the Lakers won their first championship, because Portland toyed with them for 6 games. And then Indiana beat New York to go to the finals.
Yep.
And Portland lost game 7 because nobody would have watched Portland in Indiana in the NBA final. So that's how the Lakers got to the, because Portland was up by 20 in the 4th quarter and shot jump shots, kept missing 20-foot jump shots. Wait a minute, with an all-star team. I mean, that team was loaded. Couldn't have lost on a bet. But no, I take that back. A bet was the only reason they could have lost. And nobody will never ever convince me that Duke, UNLV, and Portland and the Lakers were not fixed.
And
Because they
that's the
defy
thing.
logic.
Yes. That's the
And
thing
lastly,
that
too,
we live in.
we on the 70th anniversary of Brown v. Board of Education. Mike, what do you think about
And still we are not saved, like I said in the text.
okay. That's what I was gonna ask you. We just as segregated now as we were 70 years ago.
Schools are more segregated now.
With the exception of, I guess, we have more, I guess, middle class and upper class blacks that are sending their kids to schools, predominantly white schools, but overall the schools are heavily segregated.
Where their kids, where their black boys in particular are experiencing, depression through the roof.
Exactly.
And so it's this thing. It's this thing.
And my last current event.
One of the true crimes of Brown, though, is just the over 40,000 black administrators that were terminated for inferior white administrators.
Now that's a good point.
Is,
That's a good point.
here we had all these
And the loss of black teachers too, Larry.
That's what I mean. And we had, and keep in mind that these administrators were the black administrators that were from Missouri and Arkansas and Georgia, where they could not go to graduate schools, white graduate schools of the state. The states paid for them to go to Ivy League schools, Columbia, Harvard, NYU, Boston, and these administrators were extraordinary. But Brown was weaponized to make them in charge of discipline, or the in-house suspension individuals, or individuals that were over the busing systems. That was, I mean, it is a crime that continues to plague us today. When we talk about how we got here, there is, we need to do a whole stock evaluation, because there are a number of reasons that we got here. And that, coupled with the fact that Malcolm's birthday is tomorrow, he shares a birthday with my deceased sister, Lady Love, Lisa Fields. There's just this is a weekend in which there's a lot of self-evaluation and communal evaluation that needs to be taking place. because we need to make some decisions.
Well, Larry, I'll add to that one of the things, again, this speaks to our lack of civic literacy. We don't understand the difference between federal, state, and local government. It's all government to us. And so it wasn't just because Brown that those people got fired. It was because at the local level, we either weren't or couldn't be engaged. And so, and we still aren't. And we're still fighting battles. We're fighting battles about curriculum instead of getting on school boards. That's a problem. You know, we're not on school boards, we're not on city councils. Politics is a contact sport, right, Mike? And so
Contact sport and politics is all local.
it's all local. And so we don't want to go to meetings. You know,
Right.
again, we don't vote. We don't vote in local elections. We only vote for the president.
We don't
And
want to be
so-
in charge, but I think that's a side effect
Well,
of being
well,
enslaved.
I'm gonna flip that. I'm a nuance that, Gerald. It's not even. We don't want to be responsible.
That's what I mean. We don't want to be responsible, but I think, don't you think that's a side effect
It is
of being enslaved? We're just so accustomed to not having to be responsible.
that is
So
100%.
that's a part. That's what it means to be a slave.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so,
Not
and so
correct.
you got other people making decisions for you, and you live with those decisions. That's
And
what
we've become generationally comfortable with that,
that is one of the, you know,
of having other people just make decisions for us.
That is one of the things that's a part of our legacy. And so, you know, so Brown did what Brown did, and we blame and attribute whatever we blame and attribute. But at the end of the day, at a local level, we didn't do what we were supposed to do.
Well,
And Charles,
we were not in position to do much. When you look at where where a bunch of the casualties are, these were, they were white superintendents that put things in play. So,
but
and I mean, so and there were not, we certainly did not have the representation at the state level in the
So why didn't we do what we did? So we weren't always in public school. So even before public school, we did private school. We did private school. And so if it was that important to us, why didn't we say, well, okay, we gonna do school in church?
Charles, I want to
hold on one second, Mike. That's a really good question, and I don't have the answer to that.
I do.
That's okay. We need to get. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Here is what because it goes back to the comments that Charles and Gerald were having about in charge responsibility. I think Charles is right. It's about being responsible. What our problem is, we no longer produce puppies with big paws, because that's where big dogs come from. They come from puppies who got big paws. Because you born to want to be a big dog. And a matter of fact, a big dog will run the pack, whether it's a big pack or a little pack, and a big dog will not allow him or herself to be no place where they can't be a big dog.
Why?
And,
Why?
huh?
Why? How come? Why aren't we producing them anymore?
I don't know. And wait a minute. And I don't want to call it, metaphorically, I'll call it breeding, in the sense that we raise our kids not to be big dogs. That's why all our puppies got small paws, Cause literally the only place we still allow black boys to be big dogs is in sports.
Mm-hmm.
That is it.
But we ain't raising big dogs no more. And part of it is, I think it ain't safe to be a big dog.
Well, it's never been safe to be a big dog because if you were a big dog on the plantation, they'd sell your ass.
Part of it too is our comfort level right now, don't you think? You know, we're at a comfort level that we don't think that's
All of those are
necessary.
issues. All of those are issues. I don't think there's one answer to that.
Not one answer. You right.
Like again, I don't know about this comfort level that we in. I'm just not clear on it. It's like
We're a lot more, Dr. Alexander, now we are a lot more comfortable
we
than what our
move.
parents and our great parents were. Mike, you can speak to this more than I can. But you know, just look how we doing stuff right now, how we having this conversation, how you chilling out on the campus. You know, we
We
do
can
have
move.
that's
We can,
totally
yes,
different now than
yes,
what
we
our
can
parents and
move. Yeah,
parents had to endure.
I'm in agreement I'm in agreement with the fact that we can move differently than what our parents were able to do. I'm in agreement with that. But beyond that, I don't see the comfort level. So we can move more freely, but the carceral state has grown in the midst of that.
It has. And I think that being able to move more
Unarmed black
comfortably though
men
has
been
created
getting
this
killed
utopia in our
before,
mind.
during, and after Colin Kaepernick. You know, all what we are is more distracted. I don't know if I don't know that we're more of a whole bunch of things. I do think we're better educated, but that's because that was the nature of the fight. And so one of the things because one of the, I mean, we got all of these things that we say and do wrong historically. And so we got more kids graduating. We got, all of that stuff happens, but all of that stuff is a function of the fight. I get that part. But at the end of the day, what has never changed is the difference between Black unemployment and white unemployment and white and Black wealth. That ain't never changed. We ain't gaining no ground on that. And so
What metric do you think Black folks are meeting on? Because I think comfort to us almost is to be left alone from these white folks. We just want to be left alone. So, I mean, I don't even know if these gains are things that we considered comfort.
But Larry, I think that's part of the problem is that we know that there was a point in which we did want to be left alone. And I don't know that that's what a lot of people want now. I think a lot of people want now is the things that folks argue about. I mean, so there are X number of folks that cannot distinguish Brown versus the Board of Education from whatever happened in the 60s. They think it's all the same thing. And so you got X number of people who think that the fight was to go to school with white folks as opposed to resources. Because the other part of the narrative that is always wrong, or at a bare minimum is short-sighted, is that part of the reason that it was necessary for us to fight those fights is because we were paying taxes and not having our institutions funded, which was what was resulting in the unequal education. So the thing wasn't just going to school with white kids. The thing was we was going to school in one-room shacks.
Oh, without a doubt. But the only way they could get it across the court was to make the race narrative.
Well, I mean, we could go back into the case study case law about that. I mean, I know you guys got access to that and we can have a long, deep conversation about that, but I know that everybody wasn't fighting for that. Some people, in the context of all of the cases that ultimately led to the class action suit, everybody wasn't fighting for their kids to go to school with white folks. Some folks were fighting, if we got to go to school 2 miles away, I just need bus service for my child to get there. Give us the resources for that. And then that turned into a part of the case. In fact, one of the cases that's a part of the Brown piece was exactly that. They was fine with going to the school where they went. They didn't have no transportation.
Ironically, there was a recent study done about resources available to students. And even in similarly situated neighborhoods, Black students that wanted to be in a higher budgeted per student, $1,000 per student versus $500 per student, still had to go to integrated schools.
Douglas, Larry, what is now Douglas Manor in Webster Groves,
Yes.
that, that sits on the hill.
Yes.
Douglas is the first magnet school in St. Louis. And so this was one of those examples where, so Douglas Elementary is in Webster Groves, is down the street from my house. It was K through 12. By the time I went, it was K through 6.
It was
Brown.
It was the Black high school in Webster Groves.
It was the Black high school. So there were 2 Black high schools on the front end of this thing, Sumner and Webster. You went to one or the other.
Vashon too, no?
Before Vashon. And so you went to one or the other. And if you lived west of the city, like all the way out to Eureka, you came to Webster, stayed in Webster or in Kirkwood during the week, and you went home to your parents on the weekend. And so by the time I come, Webster's no longer K through 12, it's K through 8 or K through 6 or whatever.
Douglas.
But I mean, Douglas, but part of what happens is that in the midst of all of this, Black folks in North Webster did not fight to keep Webster or to keep Douglas open. And they redrew boundary lines through North Webster that split up the population of students that were filling Douglas. And so like I ended up going to Avery, and Douglas is literally 200 yards from my house. And so, but I've had this conversation with my parents and with their peers. They weren't going to school board meetings. They was busy doing whatever they was busy doing. But ultimately, they weren't responsible for something that they should have been responsible for. And so we had the great Henry Gibbons, who put that curriculum in, and that's where he was before he went to Harris Stowe. He was my principal.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
He's the principal for all of my siblings. And and that was one of those examples. And so then when Dr. Gibbons left, Dr. Burns, she became the principal. And when they closed Douglas, she went from being a principal back to being an English teacher at Hickson, which is the junior high school in Webster.
Now, I think Hickson is named after Dr. Gibbons now. One of those schools is named after Dr. Gibbons now.
Steger was a junior high also. And then they changed, that happened when I was in school. It went from being a junior high to an elementary school. And then in the past 5 years, they renamed Steger after Dr. Gibbons.
But yeah, anytime I think of Douglas, I think of Dr. Gibbons and the work that he did there. All 4 of my children graduated from rough schools. So,
But my point is just that we don't we struggle, we continue to struggle in some of these very crucial spaces. We to be free is to be responsible.
That's a
And
t-shirt.
or
and
not,
so,
That's a
or
t-shirt.
not, or not be responsible. I'm free, so I don't want to be responsible. So
and so you can certainly take
and what that does is that gets you to the will of those that are responsible.
that you can certainly take
But
that
yeah, people,
perspective. Yes.
yeah,
You can
it does.
certainly take that perspective, and then you're literally at the whim of
At the
somebody
whim
else,
of-
which is,
at the whim of everyone that goes to the meeting.
and that's where we typically find ourselves.
I
and
got
then we
one
say,
last question for y'all
whatever.
current event though. Is Sean Combs, is he done with the release of this video?
I'm done with him. I don't know what other people do, but that's for me, that is and to be honest with you, I didn't see the video of Dre beating up D Barnes, but I've never embraced him based off of the description of the way he beat her. But that's a non-negotiable for me. I don't deal with guys that beat women, that, don't take care of your children. I have nothing for you. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want to see your face. I don't want to hear that he was about to buy NBC. I don't want to hear anything. Now, one thing to quote unquote run women, but to beat women, and because to look at that video, this guy made her essentially plead to breathe. He's the worst sort of coward that you could ever anticipate. I have absolutely nothing for him. That oppression, that violence, that was financial, that was physical, that was emotional. I don't have anything for him.
Yeah,
Tell me
I
how you
agree with
feel.
I agree with Larry on that. At a certain point, you got to say you're no longer part of the village or the tribe.
Right.
You on your own. Whatever happens to you. But you ain't connected to us, and we ain't connected to you. And when you think about human development in prehistory, or us as more before the establishment of civilization, they didn't have to have capital punishment. All they had to do was just put you out the tribe, because the ability to survive outside the context of the social unit didn't exist, and that's why you couldn't violate the norms of the group, because the norms were put in place so that we could all have a chance to be okay, maximize our chance for survival. And when you violate those norms, really what you're doing is putting all of us here at risk. And we have tendency to defend too much bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to just say, that's on you, man. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bring that one to us. Okay. And wait, and the people that are after you are enemies of ours. But we can't what did Don Corleone tell the Undertaker? We told Tom about the Undertaker. He said, despite what that Undertaker thinks, we ain't murderers now. Okay. And to me, that's the moral arc of that movie. That's when he establishes, yeah, we're subject to do anything, but we won't do just anything for any reason. Mm-hmm. And so there's got to be a rationale behind everything we do. And to the points that Charles raised, I think that's really what we've lost. We have spent too much time in America, and we have internalized too much of what it means to what white people have internalized about America. And since we'll never be white in America, that's more of an infection for us than an inoculation to America. So,
Mike, not only have we internalized it, we seek it more than they do. And
Exactly.
our value
yeah,
judgments are predicated. First of all, you make them the standard bearers when they shouldn't be. But our value judgment is predicated on their wants and wishes. And we have totally isolated who actually we have totally betrayed who we are.
well, I put it like this. That's just wait. And people who make the money, it's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. So I don't think you got no moral obligation to do nothing I'm thinking about. But just suppose LeBron, P. Diddy, and them were built like Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier and them.
They wouldn't be in the positions that they are because
And Muhammad Ali.
they had to
On
be
Muhammad Ali.
curated.
But no, I'm talking about
They had to
what
be
those brothers
curated to
did
be
was
placed in
took
there.
their resources
I know what you mean.
and put them in play for their reputation, their relationships, etc. So literally, there's enough Black financial capital to fund a Black political movement to do what Charles is talking about. And that is to educate Black people to what's in their interest, independent of what white people think. And all the people we're talking about really make their money. Now they make a lot of money from white people, but like Aretha went Angela Davis's bail, and her rationale was, I make a lot of money. And I make a lot of money because Black people buy my records and come and see me. That sister out there on behalf of Black people, I got her because y'all got me. Okay? It wasn't no more, and she didn't care what white people, if white people never bought another Aretha Franklin record, she didn't care. He said, because enough Black people buy my stuff to make me okay.
Right.
Okay? The reason Ray Charles quit going to Georgia. Now, Ray Charles blind, so he don't see nothing. Georgia is where he's from. And Quincy Jones said, I can't go back down there, man. That's it. All that's going on. And Ray say, well, okay, then I ain't going either. Okay. Yeah, all right. So what I'm saying is that with a certain level of power influence also you would hope would come a level of heightened responsibility that you would choose to accept. Not that you're required to accept, but you would choose to accept. Right. And that's what this American culture doesn't do. I mean, you can think about the robber barons, the Carnegies, and the Rockefeller. All these are gangster corporate thieves. Okay, I mean, they did terrible stuff, but they also gave away. You know, Spelman was endowed by Rockefeller. Okay, Carnegie gave libraries all the. So what they did was they recognized they stole a lot of money. And they say either they want to get straight with God or whatever. And they say, well, let me give some of this back and give it back in a way that makes a difference for the people that, because left to their own devices, they would never do the library. And because you got libraries, working class kids, poor kids might have got a chance to go to college because they had some place they could go study, do research, etc. So what I'm saying is, the French term noblesse oblige literally translates, the English translation for that literally is with nobility comes responsibility, obligation.
Or,
That,
or biblically, to whom much is given, much is required.
Required.
thank you. That's the other thing. To whom much is given,
Much is
wait a
required.
minute. Required, Larry.
Yeah.
Not you, not you. Required. Okay.
It's not an option.
It's not. That's it. It
It's
ain't
not an
option.
option. It's
It's not an
required.
option. Right.
And, you know, and that's the sad thing about his downfall, going back to the subject, is that he had all this money and all this opportunity, and this is how it goes down.
And and what you got to do is you got to let him sink.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't defer the boat. You can't say, "Well, we got it now." Okay, he not a casualty, but we can't stop doing what we doing or what we trying to do in order to deal with that. And you got to not trip off of it. You know, it don't even have to be part of the conversation. He said, "What about that? What about it?" Okay, I don't have to defend it, and I don't have to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing that we get into too much. We think we got to
We got to defend it.
No, we think we got to defend our bullshit. And now what we just really got to say, well, that's bullshit. Okay, so that's where that go, and I got business. And you deal and you deal with it like that. I mean, it's the same way you would deal with a junkie who's a relative or a good friend. Because the one thing you know, if he a junkie or she a junkie, she a liar and a thief. Because all junkies lie and steal. So that's where you put them. Now you ain't, you wish they wouldn't, but you can't make them what they ain't.
No. No.
And you can't accommodate that because it'll be at your expense.
Absolutely. Dr. Alexander, you have any thoughts on that subject? I think he might be indisposed right now. But Mike, you've always mentioned that white folks have a white folks problem. And we had a startling example of that yesterday morning as the U.S. Open was taking place in Valhalla yesterday, and there was a tragic car accident in front of the country club around 5:30 in the morning in Louisville. One of the obviously there was a police presence on the scene. There were police officers that were working the fatal car accident, and a car attempts to go around the blockade, assuming that this was the normal blockade that you find in golf tournaments, and that the prescribed players would be able to enter into the actual parking lot. Well, that wasn't the case. One of the police from what oftentimes is described as the hillbilly brigade jumped on the car of the individual that was trying to go around the roadblock. Turns out that the individual that was going around the roadblock was none other than the world's #1 golfer, Scotty Scheffler. Police officers pulled him out of the car and arrested him without without warning. The second morning of the golf tournament. And we have to keep in mind that this is the same police force that killed Breonna Taylor indiscriminately. And this is a problem that is bubbling, that they have no answer to, but I don't even think they've addressed it. But they charged Scotty Scheffler with 2 misdemeanors and a felony, Gerald.
Right.
They charged him with the felony of assaulting a police officer, and I'm assuming it was with this car. So we've got a problem that's emerging, and it is now bubbling out of our community. It's bubbling out of our community and in the mainstream white folks, and it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this.
Mhm.
Larry, I missed what you
I
said at
heard
the
him talking
beginning.
about that.
Yeah,
And the officer jumped on the car himself, right?
yeah, he attached himself to the car. Dr.
He
Alexander,
went around, didn't he go around? He went around a barricade, didn't
he went around a barricade.
he? Okay.
Yeah, he went around a barricade.
Well,
I mean, all I'm
But he
getting at
didn't
is
know
he
it
was
was
in
an
the wrong.
accident. He went around the barricade with the intent of thinking they had it barricaded because of the
The
tournament,
players,
correct?
for the players. Now that happens every week. The players are given access every week. Stay with us, Dr. Alexander, because I want to talk to you about the Brother Love's behavior. I'd like to get your feedback before we leave. But yeah, that happens every week, and so it'll be interesting to see how this occurs, and if this was aggressive policing or if this was entitlement from
but Larry, that's an interesting point. They had a barricade every week,
every week.
but the police told him to stop.
Yeah, they told him to stop.
They
Okay,
told him
so-
to stop, and he did not
so-
stop.
Yeah,
Right. So, and if he was black, he'd be dead because that's the Louisville Police Department because they just shot him.
they
Okay,
killed him.
You're
but
exactly right.
but
They
but
killed
the
him.
point, but the point is that's just a breakdown in the civil order. You show up at a barricade, there are police there that say don't go any further. Now you don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you just made the decision because you're a successful, rich, famous white man
Mm-hmm.
that
And I'm just gonna ignore that.
whatever's going on don't apply to you.
And North gets on ESPN and calls the police officers that work those tournaments. We
Yeah.
often refer to them as rent-a-cops. It's like, oh,
Okay.
you gonna say this on national TV? Okay.
So whatever it was, you didn't have the courtesy to say, "Hey, man, I'm so and so, and I'm late for my tee off or whatever." Because even under that circumstances, they may have waved you around,
Exactly.
but you didn't even give them the courtesy of saying, "Hey, I'm jammed. I don't know what's going on, but I'm jammed up here. What's up?"
Right.
And somebody might have said, "Give me a minute," and come back and say, "Yeah, going around."
Right.
Now that would have been a reasonable response. But I would tell you, if somebody black had been in that same position and decided that they wasn't stopping, wasn't getting around, they would have been treated like a bank robber or
But then shot Tiger.
huh?
Chitty chitty bang
Oh,
bang, baby. Chitty chitty bang
yeah.
bang.
Yeah,
If not shot, he would have been beat down when they pulled him out that car.
Yeah. Tiger obeys commands from those police officers. We've seen the mug shots. Tiger obeys the commands.
But that's assumed that they would have recognized Tiger. It could have been just a brother in a car, okay?
Right.
So yeah, you know what? Now on that one, obviously ain't nobody a fan of the Louisville Police Department, but I don't know if they're wrong on this one.
Yeah, time will tell.
Well,
I agree with Mike.
If I'm the prosecutor, you're gonna have to come to court to explain it.
And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Anytime there is an assault on a police officer or a potential assault, prosecutors are loath to reduce those charges.
Can't.
They are
I
loath
can't.
to reduce those.
Okay.
That
I ain't. Okay. Now we'll work out a deal with the judge because we probably ain't gonna send you to jail for this, but your ass is gonna have to show up.
He's
Okay.
gonna be arraigned Tuesday.
I don't want the problem.
He's gonna be arraigned Tuesday. So we will see. And then the look of impropriety while the whole country's looking. I don't know. I don't know, Gerald. I mean, would you want that as a client? You know he can pay well, but I don't.
I'll take him on as a client because he can pay.
You can pay.
Yeah.
No,
Wait a minute, and everybody's entitled to a defense, right, Counselor?
Right, everybody's titled to. And another reason why I would take them on as a client, because it would allow us to get deeper into it to figure out exactly what happened.
Mhm. Yeah.
But it's gonna be hard to make the police wrong in this one.
It's gonna be hard.
No doubt.
I had a case recently.
But we just try to get it down off them felonies, Mike. We can get it down to a misdemeanor. We can take that.
You're gonna have to try that case, man.
Well,
that
wait a
case
minute,
I had.
as a good criminal defense attorney, you don't ask them if they did it. You ask them how they want to plead.
How you want
Exactly.
to
And when they say not guilty, you say, "What's your story?" And you say that ain't gonna work. Okay.
Right.
Dr. Alexander, I wanted to go back to you to opine on the video that we saw with respect to Sean Combs and Miss Cassie.
I didn't see the video. I'm not really paying attention to this Sean Puppy Combs stuff. I don't care about Sean Puppy Combs. I don't care about most of them guys. I think we get caught up in these things because these guys are on TV at all. They ascend to some level of leadership in our community, and that's not who these guys are.
That's not.
So whatever happens to that guy, I assume he probably deserves it. And so, if this is the end and the demise of Sean Combs, so be it. I tend to agree with your earlier statements about Drake and any of the other guys that beat women and all this other foolishness. R. Kelly, all of them guys, all them guys can go away for me. So I'm good. So I haven't seen it. Like I said, I don't really follow that stuff. We have to do better in terms of establishing and maintaining our standards for leadership. This other 40-year-old guy who's in the NBA, I don't necessarily care about him. I do care about the fact that people keep telling me that he is some kind of, Renaissance man, and this Negro is pro-Israel. And so we got problems. We don't understand standards. We don't understand the fight. We don't understand the battle. We are literally isolated on an island, and we don't understand the difference between, empire and the oppressed. We struggle. We struggle. And so all of it comes kind of the same. All these Negroes running around talking about they Christians and are very much, very, very, very much guilty of idol worship, which is why we get a LeBron James, why we get a Puffy Combs, why we get a Dr. Dre, why we get a R. Kelly, why we get a Bill Cosby. All of that is hero worship, idol worship. All them guys is clowns and buffoons, and we struggle and suffer for it.
See, y'all never.
And the whole church said amen.
Yeah,
Okay.
but first of all, y'all never should have let him get back on that campus and open up that phone. Don't let him take his phone, man. He back on that campus. We'd have messed around and got anti-apartheid Dr. Alexander from 1989, and I'm loving every minute of it. Every single minute of it. That is whole stock and barrel. We're not going to get into the Kendrick Lamar Drake battle. We're not going to get into we almost want to get into the Marjorie Taylor Greene battle, but we won't.
But Charles, I mean not Charlie, Larry, on the Marjorie Taylor Greene, I am so glad that sister said, "Bitch, take this back with you," okay? Because all that nonsense that we got to take this kind of shit off these ignorant white folks, that's crazy.
Every day.
Okay?
I agree with you on that, Mike. We have got to push back. We can't set this narrative that we just have to take it.
Yeah, here is my response to Michelle Obama. Like, when they go low, you ain't supposed to go high. You're supposed to kick them in the head and they'll never go low again.
And they won't do it again.
Okay? That's what you do when somebody goes low. Okay?
Right.
You punish them for it. And that way, because, if you think about it, there are mythic stories, but it's all true, that in the South, at its worst, there were black men that white folks didn't mess with.
Absolutely.
Okay? Because there were black men that didn't have no problem leaving here and taking them with you.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And so they didn't mess with white folks, but white folks didn't mess with them.
Right. Right.
Because
Mike
ain't nobody.
Jones,
Huncho,
Mike Jones, to that point, one of the most empowering things that has ever happened to me in my life is to walk around Sedalia, Missouri, which is central Missouri, with my grandfather and listen to white folks say, "How you doing, Mr. Parks?"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With respect to your earlier comments, though, about these players that are endorsing Israel and their genocide, it really reminds me of
The whole NBA is endorsing Israel because they scared of Adam Silver. The
well,
whole NBA, all of Negroes.
but I think all of the thing that applies to all of them is what Curtis said in Dreamgirls when he turned to his wife and said, "You know why I made you leave? No, 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 I don't know why you made me leave. Because you're empty. There's nothing there. The only thing that comes out of you is what I put in you there." That's why we have those guys in front of us. That's why you would never see when we tried to juxtapose what would happen if Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier had the bags that these guys have. They would never assail to that point today because they're not empty. And they would have been weeded out a long time before they got to the point where these guys have achieved this success. So having said that, it's been an incredible week. We've got a lot to unpack and a lot to a lot of work to do. And I thank you all for your work today, man. And unless there's anything pressing, I think this is appropriate time for us to close out this week.
All right.
and try to stay
Have
out
a
of
good
jail,
day,
Charles.
gentlemen.
Did you hear what Mike
Okay.
Jones said, Charles?
I told him try to stay out of jail. Don't get so mad that you don't care no more. Okay.
But if you get locked up, call me.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you. You're muted, Doc. Doc, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm not gonna go around none of the barriers. I see the barriers and the barricades. I'm gonna follow all of the little rules and everything.
Okay.
If you get locked up, don't say nothing, don't sign nothing.
And call us.
I'm gonna call Attorney Christmas. I get locked up.
Yeah, no
I'll be
question.
on my way.
All right, guys. Great.
Yeah. Well, old brothers supposed to get young brothers out of jail. They ain't supposed to go to jail with them. Okay.
That's for sure. All right.
All right.
All right, then, man.
All right.
Y'all peace out.
Peace out.